Electricity production. As mentioned earlier, some items require electricity as their fuel. In the early part of the game, we use boilers and steam engines combined together to create electricity. Later on in the game, you will find that you can use solar panels and possibly mix them with accumulators, and even further in the game, you might get to nuclear power. But now we're going to talk a little bit about steam engines and the boilers. And I'm going to start with the boiler. So if I lay down a boiler here, what you're going to see is a couple of things. If I turn on the Alt key, as we talked about, I can see that I need water, and the water will flow through. So it doesn't matter which way I feed the water will flow through. And what I can actually do with these boilers is I can actually put them side by side, or I can actually separate them with a pipe. So if I actually wanted these two to be parts, let's do this. Let's separate this. Excuse me. Let's just move this way over here. Now let's just put a curved pipe on here. And so this is actually what is called a pipe to ground. And what it does is it actually allows me to run a distance. And you see the little yellow section, that's basically the underground component. So it has a down and an up. And it'll keep reversing itself. It doesn't auto-reverse. When you place one, it puts it out the other way. And so you just have to hit R to flip it around if you need it to go the other way, if you're trying to connect to something and it's not looking the right way. So the other thing I wanted to quickly talk about with the pipes is that if you have a bunch of pipes, and I'm just going to lay out 10 of these, I believe that's 10, 5, 7, 10. If you lay down an underground or a pipe to ground, it'll actually go one extra square. So it goes basically 11. If we look at what it takes to build those items, as we talked about in crafting, one pipe takes one iron plate, but the pipe to ground takes 5 iron plates plus 10 pipes. So it takes basically 15 iron plates to complete. So it costs you 4 extra. But what you get is the ability that, if I had my character here, because if I wasn't in sandbox mode, I can actually run through there. You can lay other things in between there. I could have track, I could have transport belts coming down. So these are really handy so you don't get so clogged up with pipe you can't move and you can't move your resources around. Okay, so now, what we need is some water. So what I do is I put this thing down called an offshore pump, and these you build. And you'll find with the offshore pump, if I put it out too far, it's red, and if I put it too close to shore, it's red. But it'll find there's little happy zones, and you kind of can find them. And it'll auto-rotate itself depending on the way it needs to push out the water. So you can see up at the top here, it's automatically rotating itself. And you see if I put it right next to the shore, it doesn't, because it's an offshore pump. It needs to just be out one extra square. It looks like it's not doing that here, but if you look, I'm actually really not on the right edge here. I'm actually one square out as well here. So if I just line this up right here, what I could actually do is I can actually connect that with either these pipe to grounds, or I can actually use a straight pipe. And I'm going to show you the straight pipe because I want to show you what it looks like when inside. It does a cutaway on the pipe and actually shows you what's in there. So in addition to this symbol showing the water, you actually get to see it. And you can actually sometimes tell which way it's flowing based on, you saw that quickly when I connected that the fluid flew, the water, the water flowed through the pipe. That was harder to say than I thought it was going to be. So anyways, so now we've got water coming here, and of course this isn't doing anything yet because both of these are saying, hey, we need a little bit of fuel to do something. And so I've got a little bit of fuel in my bag, and I'm going to just put a few in here, and you'll see that that'll burn off a bit of fuel, and then it stops. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, and this will do the same thing, and it's going to come along, and it's going to stop. So they're both getting water, and they both have fuel, but they both stopped. And it's the same reason that we talked about earlier with the mining, in that the steam now has nowhere to go, whereas the miner, didn't have anywhere to place its coal. The boiler now has no place to place its steam. And so what we're going to do is we're going to connect a steam engine right here. And we can see that this will go for a second again, and then it's actually going to probably stop again. And the reason why it stops is because now the steam engine has a problem. The steam engine, you can see, is blinking with its power, and it's saying, hey, I don't have anywhere for my power to go. So basically it's a holistic picture. Everything kind of needs a place for its stuff to go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly put a power line up here. And when I connect this power line, I'm going to put another little power line just up here. And of course this still isn't working. The reason why it's not working is while there's a power line, that isn't enough. It needs something trying to pull the power, or at least something that could pull the power. A power pole doesn't pull power, but an inserter does. So I've got an inserter here, and I'm just going to tack it on up here. And now we can see our steam engine working, and our steam engine's turning along here. The other thing I wanted to show you is that you don't have to put the boilers and the steam engines right together. You can actually take a steam engine and you can actually place it further away. You can turn it on its side and have it connect. So what this allows you to do is, even though you can place these side by side or have them connected by pipes, you can actually then, and actually I want to show you that a bit differently. I want to show you the steam coming through the pipe. And the steam will go through the pipe and it actually doesn't cool down. You can see it's actually rocketing up through the pipe. And this one's not working because it in turn also needs a power line. And now that it's got its power line, it's also doing the same thing. And so both of these are now putting out power. And it's quite simple. If I mouse over the steam engine, you can actually look over on the right hand side. It says 199 steam, and that's about as close as you typically get to 200 peak performance. You'll notice that it's saying it's got some fluid consumption, which is low. The performance says 0, and I'll talk about why that says 0 in a second. And it has an available performance of full out, and that means that it's basically being fed well. It just isn't needing to really perform because there's nothing for it to perform on, and I'll show that in a second. Similar to this steam engine having this, the boiler also has a water input. It has a 199 water, and you can see that it's putting out 200 steam. So basically, how you lose your power on your steam, where you follow this pipe, you see it says 99 all the way here, but it gets to 199. It's more or less when you have too many steam engines connected to a pipe, then you'll start to find that this will drop off. It isn't about this cooling down through the pipe, it's about you pulling too much of the steam and not having enough push from your boilers. So what you need to do is make sure that if you find that your steam is dropping below the 199, you're going to need more boilers to keep that up. Similarly, if you have your boilers going below 199 water, you're going to need more pumps. And that's pretty well speaks about the whole game. Is typically when something's low, you've just got to go back down the chain and figure out what it is you need to feed. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about why these are showing performance 0. So it's easier to actually see this when you actually click on a power pole. If I click on a power pole right now, what it's actually going to do is it's going to tell us a little bit about our power lines. And so what we do is, first of all, over on the right hand side here, it says how we're producing this, and it says we have 2 steam engines connected to our power plant. I have 2 engines. We have 2 steam engines connected to our grid. And actually, I want to talk a little bit about the grid for a second. When I laid down those power poles, you can see that similar to when we laid out the miner, it has its own grid. And each of these little power plant poles, when I place them down, has its own little grid, and it actually shows you what the grid is. And you can see I've got some over here, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But basically, it allows you to kind of try to, be efficient with your power poles. Theoretically, I could have actually moved this one up here, and I would only have had to use 2 power poles if I connect it right. Whoops, I didn't get the inserter, so I just need to move that up. And there you go. See, now I could have saved myself a power pole if I had wanted to, if that was really important to me. So basically, it allows you to lay out your power grid. And so basically, again, if I click on the power pole, my power grid has 2 items associated with it. And while that may not seem important now, I've had many a game where I've thought, as my map has gotten bigger and bigger, that all my power has been connected. And by looking at production, I've realized that my solar plant is totally disassociated from my steam engine, which is why half of my factory power is dropping through the pipe. So it's things like that that just give you a quick visual as to what is wrong, what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about satisfaction. Right now, it's saying that I have 100% satisfaction, and what you'll find is as you get more and more items on your grid, you will slowly watch your satisfaction fall. You want to keep your satisfaction at 100, obviously. What will happen is, as this drops off, you'll find that your mining and your drills, like your electrical drills, your assembly machines, even your inserters will start moving slower and slower. And so, of course, your efficiency in your factory is basically, being affected by your low power, which makes obvious sense. The reason why I'm producing 0 power right now is because while I have one inserter connected, it isn't being used. It's not moving. So if it was moving and doing something, it would actually draw power. And what we're going to do to show that is I'm actually going to connect this to these 4 mining drills that I've set up here, and we're just going to actually connect our system here. And now if I actually look at this, and actually, sorry, I've turned these ones, I'm trying to get these turned back so they're actually functioning and everything. We're actually going to click on the power pole here because it's been connected, so it's still part of our grid now. And you can see now that we've actually got some production going on. And what it's also telling us is now we can see this inserter. See, it says it's not being used, it's not pulling any power, whereas these 4 mining drills are. They're pulling a lot of power, and we can actually play with that even a bit further. Do this, and eventually we should watch the kilowatts will drop, and you can see that come down. And so as you notice, there's this grid thing going on here, and you can actually see your power over time, over a minute, over 10 minutes, over an hour. So you can actually get a feel over time. 5 seconds isn't really great. I often like watching within a minute or 10 minutes. If I'm trying to get an idea, if I'm getting spikes during the day-night cycle, sometimes you get them then. Not too often, but if you're using solar power, then you definitely will get spikes in your grid. So you need to be cognizant of that. So it's a great way of quickly getting a feel for what's causing your problem and what isn't, because you might be looking at night going, gee, I'm just not getting enough power, and then you realize the issue is that you just don't have enough steam engines or something backing up your solar power. Because you've gone into solar power and you find during the day everything's running fine, but then all of a sudden at night everything slows down. And that can happen. And then you also find as you get into some of the weapon technology that draws on electricity, i.e. lasers, if you have a bunch of bugs coming, that might really pull off your power supply. So you need to kind of watch those spikes a little bit, and it'll tell you what's going to happen. All right. So I think that's basically it for power and what you need to watch for in your power. And yeah, we'll move on. So hopefully that segment was useful for you. If it was, please leave a like, leave your comments below. If I've made any errors, please let me know, and I will update the video. Thank you for watching, and please continue on with the series.